Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 29 of A Letter to the King. A Letter to the King is my attempt to keep you appraised of the various levels of hostility and war, alliances and the likes on the PvP Euro 1 server. Let's have a look at where things were at the end of last week. So if you recall, I made the rather brave declaration that the British-Dutch-US alliance had fallen to the Swedes, French, Danes and Spanish alliance, and that caused a small amount of kerfuffle, but nonetheless I'll stick by my guns. I possibly used pardon me, too much flowery language as to the capitulation of the Dutch, who never surrendered and never had their spirit broken. I was just telling a story. But nonetheless, I'll stick by my guns that as far as I was concerned, that chapter is pretty much closed now. We're very much in the shadow of the patch which is coming. We've been told that it should be between the 10th and the 15th of this month, so that is any time soon. We'll give him a few days flex there. Let's have a look at what happened this week port battle wise, and really not much is the answer. The alliances are unshifted. The first sort of change was the Brits managed to kick the French out of Georgetown, but at the same time, horror of horrors, the French have a port on Jamaica. Oh, the indignity. And indeed so do the pirates, but they've been here before, and so the less of a shot there, and to some extent attacks on Jamaica were expected. Both these ports were well taken, well organised attacks, and the British didn't really have an organised defence. At the same time, the Swedes made a return to Haiti, snaffling up 3 pirate ports towards the end of the week. I must admit, I don't know if these were contested. And the Dutch, the French drew a line in the sand as to where they would claim to defend ports. So a lot of what's been going on here, the Danish ports being retaken by the Dutch, and some of the French-held ports are pretty much based on the outcome of the aggressors basically saying that's enough, no more war from us, beyond certain lines on the map. So a lot of the ports that people are going after now, and really there's been days where there's only been 1 or 2 ports being taken. Sorry, I think Mrs. J is passing away in the background. A little tip of the hat and a moment's silence as she succumbs to the coughing lung, which you get a lot on a damp boat. One of the reasons people go after the ports now is because they're looking for a fight. And certainly the pirates and the French met some resistance, but very uncoordinated resistance. The British, oddly enough, were initially denied at Georgetown by a combined Spanish and predominantly pirate fleet that just intercepted the flag and then played kitey sail tag until the flag expired, which was a bit pesky because people were actually looking for a fight. They took this today. I've not actually caught up with anyone involved to know if that was a hotly contested port battle. So it might have been a blank, I'm not sure. Now, one of the benefits of having pirates on Jamaica is there has been just an absolute pants load of open water PvP around Jamaica. And this is all levels of fleets. First-rate fleets, 20-man first-rate fleets. A couple of times, large pirate fleets came round, sort of 15 to 20 ships. They pulled British responders, but quite often, because of the way the pull works, they kind of pulled a lot of British responders. So I think at one point it was like 20 versus 30 ships and 15 versus 25 ships. So they didn't fare too well out of that. However, there's been loads of individual actions here. A lot of the ships they lost were ships they'd captured. I got caught up on the weekend. I saw a lone Vic sailing back, and 6 or 7 or 8 pirates sailing towards them. I dived in because it's your duty when there's a first rate, and died horribly. I got involved in some sort of screening skirmishes that also went pretty badly, but at the same time, there was some classic interchanges here. There was one pirate fleet that arrived, and in the time I saw it, and it killed me twice, it captured 3 British first rates, 2 that I dutifully tried to defend, but had no chance really. And another that they snaffled up, and often this was people going to get into a battle and then getting stranded because they didn't get there in the 2 minutes or whatever, and then these guys pouncing on them. But at the end they met their demise, and the 3 ships they'd captured were all returned to British hands or to the bottom of the sea. And I have to tip my hat to the pirates who came and fought, because there wasn't really much hiding in the battle screen malarkey going on. Just a little bit, which I think because it was 4 o'clock in the morning their time, it was time to go to bed, and fair enough, no problems with that, eh? There's a lot of lone hunters sailing around the waters in fast ships doing hit and runs. So really at the moment the best entertainment battle-wise is probably some of the open water battles going on around the south side of Jamaica. There's a little bit of it going up and down the Antilles. There was quite a bit of action in Danish waters again with the pirates. I don't know if that's persisted this week, to be honest. This part of the map's just asleep. There's nothing much happening here at all. So let us look to the horizon and see what's coming. It's a patch. So I thought with there not being much port action going, I used to do a series called Shenanigans, Scuttlebutt, when patches came out. I thought I'd do a preemptive one and just talk about what's coming in the new patch. There's quite a few players who are on a break right now, and they contact me on Steam or in messages on my YouTube channel who are saying, Jeheil, what's coming in the patch? When's the patch coming? So this is really for folks who don't participate greatly in the forums, and this is just a bit of an overview on what's coming in this big patch sometime in the next 7 to 10 days. So firstly, a slice of the Bahamas will become a rookie region. It will have different rules as far as engagement's concerned, be somewhat of a safe zone. I'll put this link in here at the top to the Games Labs forum, where you can read about this patch and then dive into some of the deeper detail that's available elsewhere in the forums if you're interested in this. But this is kind of a starter region. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, Jeheil, what do you think about these patch changes? Well, I'm glad you've asked. So with the starter region, basically I think it's a good idea. I did think the idea was going to be that the Pacific coast would be a bit of a PvE area, and I thought that might be a better place for a starter zone rather than in the maelstrom of the Caribbean proper. But we'll see how that goes. Maybe it's a sort of it's not quite a Care Bear zone. It's still got some threat, and you'll be able to practice or initiate your PvP skills. I'm a little bit worried there'll be the equivalent of seal clubbing going on there, where even though things, we'll talk about that a bit later, the rules of engagement have been changed, there'll still be, I think, sort of professional gankers in there who, even though they're sailing in the same ship as the newbie, have many moons of experience under their wings. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. The idea of a rookie region's good, and let's see what happens. Now the map change, I've covered this in 2 previous episodes of Letter to the King, but the map's been changed. There's the notion of regions being created, and a whole bunch of free towns are moving around. I'm not going to go over that again. I've already covered it in previous ones. Again, go to the link and you can find out more information about the map changes and also what's happening to the free towns. The good news is it's going to evolve, it's going to change, it's exciting, it's our sort of new world to fight over, so that's really good. And in the main part they're moving our shiz, so if you've got ports and ships and assets in free ports, they will automatically be moved to the new free port should your free port be moving. However, They're not moving all our shiz. So you might have a port that's currently a British port, say on the Panama or the coast of Panama or wherever, and that's going to become a Spanish port. So if you don't evacuate to one of your own ports, effectively your stuff is locked away. Now it doesn't get destroyed, but your nation will have to recapture that port for you to get full access to it. You could always sail in there with a smuggler flag on as a trader and load up stuff you've got in the warehouse. And if you really wanted to, you could strip your ships down, take off their cannons and their upgrades and sail out in a fleet. But A, that's dangerous, and B, it's horrible stripping your upgrades off. 3 sets of gold upgrades is a dozen mid-grade notes, and that's a lot of effort to have to do again, although they are changing upgrades a bit. We'll touch on that. I would have preferred it if they'd have basically taken all our assets off the map and given them all back to us as redeemables, and we all restart at our capital, which is very much like happens when you do a server transfer. So I would have preferred it if they'd have server transferred ourselves to ourselves, effectively. But anyway, you know, what I think and what happens are a long way apart. Delivery orders. So these are good. This is some trading changes that are happening here. So you'll now get trading and crafting XP by helping the game economy. All ports, you will now be able to get these things called delivery quests. So if a port is hungry for a particular element that it consumes, you'll get a quest to take, I don't know, 300 tons of coal from Port Morant to KPR or some sort of thing like that. The pricing system will be upgraded now. A little while ago in naval action, you might not have been playing back then. If you sold into a port and you delivered a lot of, I don't know, hemp, for every made-up number, let's say it was 500 units of hemp that you would deliver there, it would reduce the buy price. So they had a basic supply and demand model going. Now, unfortunately, as with all things, people found ways to exploit this. This is why we can't have nice things. And they took that out and gave us the static model we have now, with the delta being once a port gets oversupplied, it fundamentally stops buying it or buys it for a gold. Now, to some extent, in the heavily populated areas, so around regional capitals, almost every element on the shop has got a trader's price on it set by contract, because the sort of AI market price is meaningless and it's been overtaken by gamer economy. So that's fantastic. But outside of the busy areas, the other ports don't have such a sexy time in sort of set of AI. Set of economics. So I think more trading content is good. They mention here trader tools are integrated into the client, so that's very excitement. And they'll help you find out where good stuff is. So hopefully this is going to be some sort of demand for goods you've got. It's going to tell you ports that demand it. Now, I personally like there to be a bit of mystery in this type of thing. So I like it. What I'm hoping, and I'm completely making this up, but what I would be hoping for is that when I visit a port, it remembers the price. And then, so if I go and visit, let's say, 5 ports on Haiti, and then I sail back to lovely Jamaica and don't get killed by pirate bastards on the way, when I'm in Jamaica and I look at, say, the price of hemp, it will tell me the best price that it recalls from the ports I've visited, and perhaps give me a clue as to when I visited them, so I know if it's aged information. And that should be sort of how it is, right? You shouldn't magically know by the online internet stock market how much things are across the world. Of course, we do have the internet, thankfully, and it means that there's trader tools online. So as much as I kind of like a game that maintains that sort of thing, most people are just going to go online and get some bloody XML uploaded stuff and just hope it's right, and then rage quit when they lose 10 credits. They're going to change the weights, prices and stacks and volumes, and we're going to get some new buildings. Now, I don't know if it means we're going to get more building slots or just some new building types. Vague is the key in release notes. As a software developer, it's a very good tip to be vague. It's easier to be right if you're not too specific. Ship crafting. So this is crafting and upgrades. Now, there's a lot going on here, and there's some pros and cons, I suppose. So the quality of the ship will increase with, the quality of the ship will increase certain stats of the ships. So this means if you build an exceptional over a grey, so a yellow over a purple over a blue or a grey build, so that's based on how many high-grade notes you invest, or mid-grade notes or low-grade notes you invest. Then it will change some of the stats, so we can imagine that an exceptional blah will be, I don't know, slightly faster or slightly better armoured, or some element will be better of the ship. And that's good, that's how it should be. Okay, exceptional should be exceptional. New resources will be required to craft exceptional ships. So they did try this a little bit with ships of the line, where you had to use tea to make a British ship and wine to make a French ship. That's wine, just W-I-N-E, not W-H-I-N-E. And meat, I believe, for a Spanish ship. But this only applied to the ships of the line, and they pulled it out because they suddenly realised that if you were Dutch and you were trying to build a Santee, it basically meant you had to sneak into a Spanish port to get your hands on the meat, because it was only the capital ports of that nation that sold it. And this is a bit unfair on people who don't have a equitable ship of the line. So now they've changed it to, they say here, new resources will be required to craft exceptional ships. So that's very interesting. What will they be? And do I have any saved up in my warehouse? And now probably one of the most contentious ones, and certainly in the forum chat here, this is where lots of people have had a bit of a gibber. So crafting ships in some regions will give them regional bonuses. Now, I sort of do and don't like this a lot. Now, the problem is, of course, and you can't craft in capital, in national capitals, and get a bonus either. So if I was to decide that I want my sexy live oak ships to get some benefit from a regional bonus, let's pretend, and we'll do this sort of based on history, that the US ports produce better greenwood, because that's where the proper greenwoods come from. There's equivalents like live oak in Europe, but the true greenwoods came from the south side of USA. And perhaps that gives you an extra 5 armour, or it gives you an extra 5% ship structure. Now, having to set a port up over there and transport all the goods to make a ship over there is laborious, to say the least. It's extremely high risk, but it does mean you would be producing a better ship. So I sort of like people having to put effort in to get really good stuff. I personally would prefer it if these regions produced materials that had a quality nature to them. So many moons ago, when Gandalf was a lad, I used to play, is a mixed metaphor, yeah, I used to play the Star Wars Galaxies game, and it had probably the best crafter setup I've seen in a game. So you would have to go and find resources. So we'll just use naval action. We'll say it's ore. Okay, oh no, we'll say it's oak. We'll say it's live oak. You had to go and get some live oak. Now, if you got live oak from area A, it would be of 70% quality. And that basically meant that the maximum I could ever get on the, let's say, the structure rating for the ship was 80%. But if I managed to get some 90% live oak, then my structure could perhaps reach 100%. And if I managed to get some pristine live oak, which was very rare, very difficult, very expensive to buy on the market, then I could get 110% on my structure. Now, they did this in Star Wars Galaxy with every single element you made to construct your lightsabers and your blaster rifles and your speeders and your homes and these sorts of things. So what it meant was that if I really pushed the max and I used the pristine of everything, then my particular ship, or in the case of Star Wars Galaxies, my particular weapon, would just be the bee's knees. It would be significantly better than other people's equivalents. Now, of course, the downside is it now means that gear exceeds skill. What most people like is that skill is the predominant asset in any combat, and gear is just an enhancer. So you have to keep that balance right all the way through. Anyway, we'll have to see how this goes. I am a crafter. I do a lot of crafting. I like the idea of risk reward, but that's because I'm prepared to invest a lot of time and effort and tears into the game. For other folks, this might be off-putting, and that's okay. You're allowed to have that opinion. Upgrades. So they're going to reduce the role of upgrades. So this goes back to my skier, about my skill versus gear comment. At the moment, some of the upgrades are a little bit overpowered and can make too big a difference. And some of the upgrades will now become permanent that are currently regular. So you'll have perhaps less ability to, on the fly, re-equip your ship and make a significant difference. You'll be able to sell your upgrades and buy them through contracts, so that's really good because it's crap at the moment. And you can you can break them down for parts, which is interesting. Now, given they're reducing the role of upgrades in ships, I hope they reduce the cost of building them. Like the 4 grade notes to build an upgrade is really expensive. It's prohibitive. 1 gold upgrade cost a day of a crafter's effort, or half a day of a crafter's at level 50. But I do love quality being more based on the crafter and the materials they use. I'm not so keen, as I say, on the location. I love the fact we're going to get more resources and the contracts for more mods. I hope we can make all the upgrades as well, by the way. The new ones, the stay sails and things like that. I would actually prefer all BPs are available to crafters. At the moment, the new ships that came out, the Ocean and the Heavy Rattler, they're not available. You have to get those through events that they're kind of cancelled now. Now, I'm not a welfare fan, so I'd like you to have to work for those BPs and do stuff. So even if the only way to get these new BPs was to break ships down, if you could capture even the 1 Jura versions of those ships to break them down and even have a low chance, a 5% chance. So I'm okay with things being hard to get, but they should be equally hard to get for all nations. So there should be a egalitarian approach to how you get them, but it should be hard on how you get them. That's what I'd like. Almost a quest, almost an epic quest to unlock the blah blah blueprint. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. So the other thing is with the mods, I'd rather them with the mods, maybe not nerf them so much, but perhaps give mods durability. So when your ship dies, a bit like your officer, your mod loses a durability. Because at the moment, if you've got, so at the moment, all the mods that have humans in them, so things like the carpenter teams, and the powder monkeys and the boarding parties, you can't craft them, and to some extent they've got people in them, right? But it's RNG lotto as to when you get them. So I prefer them to be perhaps craftable, but have durabilities. So expensive to craft, then I would go back to let's have really expensive to craft and needing a really good crafter to craft them. But each one only has 10 lives and each death takes a tick off the mods, or 5 lives, or some number. The number is arbitrary. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the crafting. I'm excited though that all these new changes are coming. Contracts is fantastic. Except this is the only one I'm not sure on. I prefer there to be a disparity of quality in the materials that dictate the max ranges on a crafted ship's outcome. Perks. So here's the thing with perks, right? I like the perks. I like the fact that it allows me to enhance my play style. So again, you want skill to exceed gear. Now, if you're crap like me, you probably want gear to exceed skill. But given the fact being skillful is a good thing, the idea of perks should be that what it does is it allows you to exaggerate your play style. So if you're a piratey, chase somebody down and board them, then you should be able to use perks that exaggerate that play style. If you're a face-to-face brawler and you need survivability because you are a face-to-face brawler, then your perks should allow you to exaggerate that play style. I don't have a problem with that, as long as it doesn't allow you to dominate. So at the moment, if you've been watching the excellent 3v3 competition that's going on, almost all the teams run with this setup with carpenter teams and pump inventor and extra pumps, and you rip the side off a ship and it's 15 minutes before it starts taking on water. Well, that probably means the combination of perk and upgrade is tilted too far. I guess the important thing is that we recognise that until all the perks and all the mods are out, it's very difficult to understand if we have balance. And secondly, do be constructive in your criticism rather than just screaming like a crying rogue, as we used to say in World of Warcraft, every time something happens, and getting everybody nerfed to the point that it just becomes this homogeneous blob of meaningless nothing. So constructive feedback, and let's see how they go with the perks. Perks and the upgrades really go hand in hand. Now the biggest changes and the most exciting changes are the rules of engagement. So they're making quite a few changes here, and this is to do with the new port battle mechanics predominantly. So the first thing is they're going to change the tag mechanics. So now you're going to have to be I don't know the size of the circles, but there's going to be one circle which is the circle you need to be inside to initiate a tag. So that's how close you need to be if you're initiating the tag. And then outside of that, there'll be a bigger circle, which is what ships get drawn into the tag. And one would imagine they're drawn in a proportional, representative thing. So if you're on the very edge of the circle, you're further away from your quarry when you first join the battle. If you're quite close to the tagging ships, then when the battle initiates, you too will be quite close to the ships. However, and here's the big thing, drum roll, battles will close instantly. So all open water battles that are open water tags will close instantly. So now your friends can't get in if they're lugging behind in their planking build strength Laotian, which is basically a floating breeze block. So that's interesting. The rookie zones, all battles start 1v1. The battle will be opened until the BR evens out. So in theory, what that means is you only get to fight people with ships as big as yours, or enough friends can come in to help you if the tagging is uneven. It still doesn't stop two hardcore pirates running in there in a couple of 6-rates and blootering all the newbies, but anyway, yeah, that's pirates for you. What more can you expect? There will be new types of missions. Now, these are hostility missions, and these are going to be some, again, there's no real clarity on this. There's been some admin clarity, I have to say, but no real definitive guide. This is how it works. But fundamentally, let's pretend you're in KPR, you're in Jamaica, and you want to go and steal a port on the south tip of Cuba. You might take a mission out of St. Anne called a hostility mission, and it might send you to Puerto Escondido and in fact you'll be able to choose what region you want it to be in. So it will give you a mission there, and when you go on that mission, doing that mission and winning that mission will win your side hostility points, which will agitate that port and make it get closer to being ready for port attack. Now the exciting thing is here that those battles will always be open. They'll effectively have the social tag on them, up to a maximum of 25v25. Now this needs a bit of work, because if, say, me and my brave buddies go out in our 6 Bucentaires and we take a hostility mission off the coast of Puerto Escondido and we meet AI 6 Bucentaires in that mission, that's fantastic. But then if you're 6 baddie Spanish players and you're sailing past and you see this, what you might do is wait 10 minutes until the AI fleet have done a fair amount of damage to us, and then jump in to mop up the weakened aggressor. So this is an interesting one. I had some great fun in some of the social battles. They just snowballed. I got my ass kicked in a few and kicked asses in a few others. But they just snowballed into these epic 25-ship battles. And every time you thought you were winning, 3 ships would join on the other side of you. Oh, no. So I sort of liked it, but It's not the most even way of doing things. We'll have to see how that goes, and of course it will be in the advantage of the defender because they typically will have more ships nearby. But anyway, that's an interesting one. The invisibility timer, they're talking about making you're invisible for longer when you leave a battle so that it reduces the chance of you being counter-ganked, which might stop people hiding in the battle screen. To be honest, unless they do something about automatically expelling you from the battle screen, this doesn't help. My opinion is that at the end of a battle, the cutlasses should appear. They should be a different colour. God forbid they've got different colours in their palette. And it should tell you how many people are still in the battle screen and give you a signal if they have logged off. And after 5 minutes, anyone who's not logged off should be thrown out of the battle screen. That way you know not to wait around. Now, if they choose to log off and then come back on, then that's fine, I suppose, but at least they have to do that. And maybe if you log off in the battle screen, when you log back on, cutlasses appear and you have to wait 3 minutes before you can exit or something along those lines. Anyway, battle screen's a bit pants. And the invisibility timer might help, might not, we'll see. It's testing, isn't it? MPC Fleets used to give you a sort of anti-ganking protection. That's been removed. An interesting one is crew sizes. So if I was in my Victory and I had a Bucentaire in my fleet, I'd have a thumping big battle rating. Now what's happening is it's based on the number of crew in your fleets that dictate your battle rating. So if I've only got 10 men on those Bucentaires, they only contribute a small amount to my battle rating. Mission changes. So as I said before, you can pick any region for your hostility missions. And missions can be used to generate or reduce hostility. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, I guess I'm glad that they're still tinkering with this because there currently isn't the finished article right now. This is one of the two hardest things they have to do in naval action, basically because getting the rules of engagement so that everybody likes them is probably impossible. So we do need it to be probably 2 or 3 different sets of rules for different scenarios. And this one needs clever feedback, so don't just QQ, give some thought and give some concise and meaningful and constructive feedback. Lastly, they're going to change the MPC fleets that are floating around, not quite lastly, the MPC fleets that are floating around. So in a British port, you'll see a lot more British fleets than some of the bizarro, huge, dread fleets, AI fleets you get sailing around. Some new ships are being added, the Endymion, the Indefatigable. These have been based on a community member's modelling, so well done there, Ragnar Hairy Trousers. And they're not going to give out the BPs by all accounts, they don't make that clear either. However, these are going to be captural ships, but you'll only get 1 Jura, and we've no idea what the quality will be. So they're testing that idea. We used to sort of have this with third rates, and that was a good way of people getting disposable ships. I found once I hit level 50 and I can make ships pretty easily, not easily, but I can make a new ship every 3 days, a good ship every 3 days. If I put the effort in, I'm much happier throwing away my Juras. At the weekend, I was going into battles getting rid of all my ships that have only got, all my 4th rates that have only got 2 Juras left, and all my 2nd rates and 3rd rates that have only got 1 Jura left. So I start with a pristine fleet when the map resets. That isn't something everybody can do. I put far too much time into it. Anyway, happy to see how that goes, but I'd really like to see some love to the crafters here. And this is my point before. I really want to see crafters getting access to the BPs and give them epic-like quests or hard work to get them. So they are special when you've got them and everyone goes, ooh, he's got the BP. And then this is the big one, of course, port battles. What's going to happen now is you don't buy a flag. We don't have port timers. Instead, either predominantly for the most influence, you do open world PvP, and if you win, you will score hostility points in enemy waters. If the enemy wins, they will reduce hostility if they are effectively the defenders, and of course vice versa. Hostility missions, being victorious in hostility missions, will increase a port's agitation, and even doing delivery and smuggler missions will affect port hostility, be it reducing it or increasing it, depending on whether or not you're in enemy waters or your own. And then what will happen is eventually the port will hit 100% and become hostile. 48 hours from that point in time, the port battle will commence. Now, this is all being tested. It's all being tested. They're talking about the limit on the number of hostile ports you can set. I'm hoping that in a non-core time zone, which is where I play, myself and the merry folks I play with will be able to generate enough hostility to get ourselves perhaps a port battle every couple of days and lots of work setting up ports and the likes. What I'm hoping is that they get the balance right here, which I doubt they'll do first time, so that it is the right amount of hostility to tip a port. It's going to require a really good map to show you what regions and ports are at what levels of hostility, where the port battles are going to be. And I guess I'm a little bit worried about a couple of things. So non-core players, of course. All of a sudden, will port battles just become actually not port battles and everyone just sends out screening or spoiling fleets? We'll find out. Now that could be a great thing too, incidentally. You could have, like we did in the old days, 3 full fleets sailing off to do one port battle with 2 huge screening fleets and then the actual port battleships itself. So that'll be good, perhaps. Or not if it all goes wrong. And then the other question is, will small nations be able to generate enough hostility in order to become bigger nations? So, or will we have this snowball and steamroller effect where the larger player bases just persistently dominate? So there might be some balancing there. And I mean, you could program this in, right? You could simply have the more ports you have, the more hostility you have to generate because people are more resistant to the evil empire. Anyway, let's see how that goes. And there'll be a lot of other little changes and tinkering. If you remember, they put in some stuff without us knowing. Seagulls, probably one of the biggest changes. Improvements and additions. Surrendering crews during boarding. I don't know what crew collider standardization means. It must mean something to somebody. Lots of bugs fixed and lots of bugs created, probably. The pray button. Let's hope they get rid of it, because if it does it, it's a very stupid thing. And I guess my message here is the mantra I go always: let's get some good feedback, be descriptive, clearly say what's good, not just what you don't like, but what you do like. Any ideas for improvement, pop them in there. The devs are reasonably good at listening to us. So there you go. That's a long letter to the king, considering there's been no biffo. Thank you very much for listening. I'm signing off. There's no tally board, you might notice, because as I've said, I think the war is over and we're now in hiatus before the new war begins. So give us a like, give us a subscribe. I will see you on the ocean and I will catch you.